Those of you who are longtime listeners know this is a treat for me. Coquese Washington is here talking about Rutgers basketball and also what kind of time it is here in the women's sports landscape. Lots to get into. Locked on Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 200,000 of you showed up in July alone, the way we show up for you, 6 days a week, covering the past, present, and future of women's basketball. And of course, it's not just me, it is our incredibly talented staff at The Next, thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces on women's basketball every single month. Of course, Kalia Copper is playing in the Olympics right now. We have Scott Mimoser out there in France covering Team USA 5-on-5. Everywhere there is women's basketball, we are there. Sign up for our emails or get the full experience. $9 a month, $72 a year, thenexthoops.com. And we have had the privilege of having Coach Coquese Washington on the program multiple times in the past. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to Rutgers specifically, a program that is near and dear to my heart as a New Jersey guy, but also as somebody who understands and sees when things are progressing, and you can see it happening. So we're going to get into the details, but I just want to start, Coach, by pointing out I ran into you just, I guess, over a month ago. You're at the Liberty game. You are always engaged in this community of women's basketball writ large, from your time as a legendary player to your time as a coach. And I guess when you look at where we are here in 2024, what are like the big picture things about how different it is compared to what you have experienced throughout your life?
Yeah, this is to me probably the seminal time in terms of coverage and appreciation of our sport. There's no question been so many talented players over the years. When you talk about, Nancy Lieberman and Cheryl Swoops and Cheryl Miller and legends of our game. But this is kind of the seminal time in terms of being a mainstream topic of conversation. I mean, you turn on PTI and they're talking about women's basketball. You turn on Stephen A. Smith's First Take in the morning. They're talking about women's basketball in a positive way. They're talking
Right.
about the game, not any scandal or controversy, but they're talking about the game. And that is huge. And it's just so wonderful to still be a part of the game as we're moving into a more continuous mainstream space, and we're getting more and more people to be fans of the sport and to be watchers of the
Mhm.
sport and participants in terms of going to the game. So when you look at the numbers of people who are watching the WNBA games, who are watching the college games, who are watching the Olympic basketball games, and it's just a great time to be in, I think, women's athletics in particular, or in general, but women's basketball in particular. Just again, you look at the coverage of the Olympics and they're talking about the women's gymnastics teams and the swimming and the track and field and women's basketball. And it just warms my heart and bodes well for future women's basketball players like my daughter, who's a teen and loves basketball. And, the young girls who are dreaming of going pro and dreaming of going to play in college, to have the kind of support, broad-based support that we're getting now is just really, really cool to see and be a part of.
It's just normalized, which is a beautiful thing. I am curious, just as a lifer, I am sure you are having this experience where you see the new attention. The new attention is good. We need, I talk about this on the media side at all times. If we had enough media and we weren't pushing for more of it, then that would be one thing. But we need to have an on-ramp for more people to be able to do it. At the same time, there is a frustration. I know at times, I mean, you mentioned Stephen A. Smith, and I
Mhm,
look and I see someone like Monica McNutt, who I've
mhm.
had the privilege of covering dating back to her time at Georgetown, somebody who's spent years in this arena. Is it is it a challenge when you're trying to balance? I feel like this is the balance of women's sports writ large of like, yes, we want more of that. At times there's a certain frustration of like, where you been?
Mhm. Well, for me, I don't get caught up into the where you've been, because when you look at, say, for example, the NBA, it wasn't that long ago. Like Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, when they came in the league, the finals weren't even live,
Right.
right? They were tape delayed. So, we have to have that perspective in terms of every professional league has their growth, and they have these moments where they make a big jump, right? And things happen, certain personalities come into the league, certain things that happen to bump that league up. And for us, this is our time where we're seeing a big jump. So I'm more appreciative of where we are and where we're going. And you look at the change in collegiate sports
Mm-hmm.
and what's coming down the pike. And I think that, for example, with women's basketball, getting the true valuation of the sport from a financial standpoint. You look at the new media rights deal that the WNBA just got. You look at the new media rights deal that women's basketball, college basketball just got for the first time. Now we hear it coming down the pike. We're going to get units just like the men's
Mm-hmm.
basketball gets for NCAA tournament participation. So when you look at all those things that's coming, you start to see that women's basketball is truly starting to get the true value of what we bring to the table. And that's going to extend to, as we start to get into revenue sharing, that women's basketball gets their fair share of this revenue stream that's coming to college athletes. So I see all those things as a positive, and you got to start somewhere. And fortunately, myself and other players who played at the beginning of the league, we did some things to set a foundation for this moment and the moments to come. You have to set that foundation. And I'm proud and happy that I was able to be a part of setting the foundation that this game could be built upon that we're experiencing now.
I mean, point of personal privilege. There's no current moment without what you have built. So everyone owes you a debt of gratitude who cares about this sport. I want to touch on two more things, big picture, that deal directly with what you said. And the first is, again, and for those who may not know, your distinguished playing career at Notre Dame in the WNBA, you played in front of some big crowds at Madison Square Garden early on. What I'm seeing at Barclays this year is really significant. It really feels like there's an energy in that building. I'm wondering how the two compare. Does it remind you of that? Is it different? As someone who experienced them both, what does it feel like?
It feels very similar. So I remember, I was fortunate. I played on great teams, and I played with Hall of Fame players, playing in the Garden and playing in front of 17,000 people weekly. And there was an energy. There's Spike Lee across the hall. There's, Tyra Banks is at the game. And so you have all these celebrities who are at the game. Whitney Houston is at the game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this energy there, right? Like that Liberty games were big, and you go to the playoffs, or you go to even this year, you go to just a regular season Liberty game, and there's a magnetism in that arena. There's an energy that is palpable, and I'm like, yeah, I love it. And I'm able to bring my daughter and give her a sense of, this is what the pros is like, right? So I love what's happening across the league. When you go to an Indiana Fever game and you see that same thing, or you go to a Seattle Storm game and you see that same energy, it's just amazing to be a part of and energizing for our sport.
Yeah, no question about it. And again, I remember when it was a big deal when they'd open the upper level at Barclays. It was not that long ago. And now that is the assumption. And so the other thing, before we get to our break, is just, you talked about the units. And I had the chance to ask Charlie Baker about that at the Final Four. It was a very, very big deal. And I just wonder whether you think the case for everything from funding to making sure that Rutgers women's basketball is the priority it ought to be, gets easier when you're able to say, look, this is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yes, absolutely. It makes it easier for us to make that case. And the good thing is the case is made across the country, especially for the Power Four schools now. But the case is being made. If you invest in us, there is a return. Just like when you invest in men's basketball, when you invest in football, there is an expected return. And now that case can be made for women's basketball, that if you invest in us and give us the resources to be competitive, there's going to be a return on that. And historically, what has happened in women's basketball is you invest in women's basketball for some feel good reasons. It's good for the community. It's good for women's sports. It's good for the heart. It's good for mental health. And we know that when you invest in women, that they will go on to be great citizens and contribute to society. And all that is still true. But now you add on to that and there's a return on that investment. There's a financial return on that investment that we want to be a part of. And that is really a respect thing. We're respecting what this sport can bring to the athletic department and to the university overall. So, the units piece is significant in that respect. And I'm glad that we're there moving into this season.
It's huge, and I'm really pleased to see it. It's going to, I think, have a seismic effect. I could not agree with you more. So in terms of what that effect means specifically on Rutgers, back in segment 2 to talk about that in just a minute. Coquese Washington here. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by Game Time. And Coach, like you, I have a basketball crazy daughter in my house who also loves when I'm not going to games, I'm not covering the games. Juliet likes to have us go to games together, whether it's at Rutgers, which is a favorite venue of hers, or across the country. And so Game Time actually allows her the opportunity to do some things that go along with it. She doesn't just care about getting to the game. She needs to know about her viewpoint. Where is she going to be able to sit? Who is she going to be able to see? She picks out her favorite players. Something that Game Time app has is a 360-degree view of where you're sitting. So the Game Time app is really helpful, ultimately makes my daughter happy. That's what matters to me at the end of the day, as I'm sure it is for all of us. So find out more about it. You can go to Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. When you guys are going, when you and your daughter are going to a game, where do you most like to sit?
Well, she likes to sit courtside, no question. So, but I like to sit about, maybe 6 or 7 rows up near as close to half court as possible. Because I think that's, you get a little bit of a better view because you can watch more people than when you're sitting right courtside. But Raina loves to sit courtside if she can.
So I agree with you 100% about that. Although I will say we were courtside, I think it was the Northeast Conference Championship last year, and got to see Nasira Pryor, Sacred Heart, and Juliet really liked that too. So listen, we're basketball junkies. We love basketball, period. It's true. I do have to ask, your daughter, how old is she? Where is she looking for school? I just, as a journalist, I'm honor bound to have these conversations.
She just turned 15 a couple weeks ago. Going to be a sophomore in high school. She goes to Timothy Christian School here in, I think they're in Piscataway. I'm not sure. But Timothy Christian School here, and on the basketball team there, and hoping to take them on a good run this year with her basketball team.
Well, twist my arm. We'll have to make sure we cover her as well. I'm looking forward to it. We'll get our Jersey Scouts out to see her ASAP.
All
So
right.
speaking of Jersey Scouts, we've got to talk about. There's a bunch of players coming in who I'm really interested to get your take on, but Kiyomi McMiller feels to me, and this is just from the external conversation you hear, like somebody who can change the trajectory of a program. A playmaking guard who's capable of doing so many things on the court. Not a player, just fully honest, that Rutgers was getting for a few years. And so seeing that happen now, how much, two parts, how much do you feel like it helps to define what you're trying to make Rutgers basketball be? And then second of all, do you think I'm overstating where she can be, how quickly she can be a critical part of what Rutgers does here?
Yeah, no, I don't think you're overstating it, stating it at all. I think if I had one word to describe Kiyomi, it would be dynamic. And when you watch her play, when you see how her teammates feed off of her, she has elevated the competitiveness in the gym. She has elevated, along with some of the other players that we've got in, but she's elevated the play because of her ability, what she can do, her scoring ability, her passing ability, her defending ability, her speed. So when you talk about what we want to build and how we want to build this program, it starts with getting dynamic players, and so Kiyomi was really our first really true recruiting class. The 2024 class was our first real recruiting class. So bringing her and Zakara in, two dynamic players that can do multiple things on the floor. That's where the floor is for us in terms of now every year we want to add, a couple more dynamic players to play with them. But I think what she brings to the table in terms of just dynamic play and her ability to make her teammates better, is really incredible and exciting for us as coaches. And it's going to be exciting for our fan base for sure.
In terms of what Kiyomi brings as a playmaker specifically, and I know it's at some level an outdated mode of like she's a one or she's a two, and I've seen her identified as both. I know also, and we've talked about this, turnovers were something that you want to be a point of emphasis. It's been an area that I know has been slower to come than things like, your true shooting percentage has gone up significantly year one to year two. Your offensive rebounding rate went up. You are now top 100 in the country on that side of things. And I'm sure Zakara is going to help that as well. Having size at what looks like a 3-4 gives you an opportunity. Is this sort of the next evolution of where your offense needs to be? And is she someone who's going to specifically help at that level with turnovers?
I absolutely think she will be. Now she's a freshman and she is dynamic with the ball. And I'm a coach that, when I played, I would try things. So sometimes, it might end in the tuba. Sometimes it's an assist, hey. And when you have a dynamic player like Kiyomi, you don't want to take her creativity away. Right. So, but I do think that having a true lead point guard and in terms of what position she is, she is, rather than saying what position she is, she's a guard who can make plays reminiscent of an Isaiah Thomas, reminiscent of a Allen Iverson, reminiscent of a Kyrie Irving. Are they point guards? Are they shooting guards? They're dynamic guards that can do both things. And we're going to allow her to be her and to play with that level of confidence and freedom to know when to create for herself, when to create for her teammates. But it's always going to be about putting pressure on the defense to kind of stop us from coming at you and coming right down your throat.
As a head coach too, what it is to be around these elite players who come in. And, I think of the phrase that's almost a cliche, like we treat everybody equally. We don't treat them the same. Right. And so as you figure out what and how to sort of navigate that, what are kind of I don't mean the boundaries that you're setting, but like the goals that you set for her in year one? What are you looking for her to run through the tape doing.
Yeah. Now that will change as she gets more experience, as we start to play games and what our expectations are. But one of the things I learned playing in the WNBA is um, playing with great players. I played with, gosh, so many Hall of Famers. I mean, I played with Teresa Weatherspoon. I played with Rebecca Lobo. I played with Cynthia Cooper. I played with Tamika Catchings. I played with all of these great players. And one of the things they had in common, watching them play, watching their work ethic, was the confidence level they had in being themselves. And so I want Kiyomi to play with the confidence of playing how she plays and not worrying about, I have to fit in this mode or this mold that coach wants me to be in. It's going to be, how do you smooth off the rough edges, so to speak, without changing the core of who you are and how you play. So she likes to play at the speed of light. So we're going to play at the speed of light, right? And everybody else will learn how to play with her because she does a great job of making everybody else better. She's a really unselfish player. She works really hard. And she's got a bag of tricks where she can get to her shot. She can get to, her passes. And so it's almost like I would imagine watching Picasso paint, right? You don't want to tell Picasso, use green over here and blue here. You want to sit back and watch Picasso go through his process. And so it's going to be fun for us as a program to watch Kiyomi paint the masterpiece that we think this season is going to be.
Going to be fun for everyone watching. I cannot wait. I can't believe it's only August. It needs to be the start of the season. But we'll talk more about, because you mentioned Zakara and you have transfer coming in as well. It's really an interesting group coming together. Back right after this, more with Coquese Washington at Rutgers. I am Howard Megdal. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your car running smoothly. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. I don't know what all of those things are, but the good news is eBay Motors does. They have you covered with over 122 million parts for your car. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And they have this thing, it's this little green check mark. It's the eBay Guaranteed Fit. So your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. I may not know much about cars, but I know which model and make my car is. So that's enough. That's all you need for eBay Guaranteed Fit. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Truly, I need to know how to get to Jersey Mike's Arena. That's what I need to know. Other than that, how my car does it's a mystery to me, but unfortunately, other people know. So back with Coquese Washington, talking about this team. And so let's take them each in turn. Okay. I want to give them each a moment. So Zakara Perkins, other freshman coming in, 6'3", out of Texas. What is she right away? What can she be?
Yeah. So I'm excited to talk about some of the other players, because although Kiyomi is probably the most heralded player, the new players that we've added to our roster are really going to be impactful. And starting with Zakara, the other true freshman, she is a 6'3", athletic, and she's just tremendous energy. She can shoot the three. She can bring the ball up the floor. She plays great defense with her long arms. She gets after it. She rebounds. She's a good passer. She comes from great stock. So her mom played in the WNBA. Demaya Whitfield played in the WNBA for a long time. And she put that desire into Zakara to be great. So I think one of the things that Zakara has in spades is a high level of work ethic, and that work ethic is helped our gym become more competitive and just a more cohesive and high IQ gym because of her presence.
And I'd be remiss not to point out that Demaya also pride of Rancocas Valley in Mount Holly, New Jersey. So again, the thing that I think is important to note, I think that listeners need to see and understand, Coach, is the way in which you are reaching into the New Jersey roots in
Yeah.
order to make Rutgers, absolutely not ruling out bringing in talent from all over the country and all over the world, but that New Jersey is central to that. You talked about it on day one. You've talked about it with me every year. It's really gratifying to see because I know it is a path to the program getting to where you want it to go. But let's talk also about the transfers.
Pointing that out, that Demaya is, and that because that was a part of the recruitment for her, was because her grandfather still lives in Trenton.
Nice.
And so, they still have the New Jersey connection there, and that was important. And Kiyomi, graduated from Life Center, which is 45 minutes up the road, spent her junior and senior year in high school there. So although she's from the DMV area, Maryland area, she is a New Jersey high school kid. So being able to keep her in state and keep her close was huge for us. And that local recruiting and those New Jersey ties are really important for us.
And your staff is always in the gym around here. I mean, it's a known thing. It's important that people understand it. You are seeing the result of it. And yes, we are absolutely, on behalf of New Jersey, I'm prepared to say this, claiming Kiyomi as our own. So, I feel very comfortable with that.
Yes.
So in JoJo Lacy and in Janae Walker, it seems like, again, these are parts that make sense for what you are looking to do. Take me through the way you saw them and just in general, sort of how you evaluate when you're in the transfer portal, because it's, as you know, it's madness.
It is madness. The good thing for us and our approach is not to just go in kind of willy-nilly, but go after kids that we have a relationship with prior to them going into the portal, to make sure that they're a good fit, right? And so I recruited JoJo Lacy to Penn State. So I knew her. We had her on campus numerous times there. So I knew her mom and her dad. Janae Walker, Coach NECA had recruited her out of high school. So having those prior relationships kind of allows us to go in and know if they're going to be a great fit for our culture. JoJo is somebody that we wanted to add another wing with size, athleticism, and experience, right? So as a grad student, a fifth year, she's kind of been through the trenches, and she brings a maturity to our team and a leadership capabilities to our team that we want to have. And then she's played in the ACC for 4 years. So she has that high level competition under her belt. Janae Walker, same thing. She played a year at Kentucky, played a year in the SEC. Didn't get a ton of minutes, but being in that gym, being in that environment, being at those games, and she gives us some size, knowing that we're going to be competing in the Big Ten, and with the new teams coming in, they've got a lot of size. So some more true size in our front court was really important. And those two, as well as our true freshmen, they come in with a little bit more experience, high basketball IQs, incredible work ethic. So our gym is more competitive. Our gym is, again, higher basketball IQ. And because they fit our culture, there's a closer knit sisterhood that's developing, that, again, one of those intangible things, but how you get along is how you get along sometimes. And they bring some tremendous intangibles in terms of that are impacting our chemistry.
It's fascinating. I can't wait to see how it all comes together, and even just to close, to give people a big picture sense of this. And I just want to give people a little context before we talk from your perspective about how you define success in year 3. It's worth noting that, yes, the records are not where you'd want them to be. Now, you came in late in the process going into year 1, and you talked about this on the program. And of course, the only reasonable thing is, you have to get a sense of what you have. And then you go to year 2 and it's only, like you said, the first year of recruiting is impacting here in year 3. Nevertheless, if you go beyond the wins and losses, you go to everything from your offensive rating went up by almost 5 points per game. Your defensive rating improved. You were playing a little faster. You were or right at the same level. Offensive rebounding, you were top 100 in the country. All these different ways to get better. I've talked about this on the program, that the wins are the last thing that comes. It's like you're opening a safe and you can have almost all the numbers there, but the safe only opens when all the numbers are set up. And so I say that as a precursor to say, you're right, you're in the Big Ten, which has, I think, 74 teams now. Is that right? After the expansion? and so, and all these major powers. As you sort of think it through and you're figuring it out, and we're seeing a brilliant young talent in year 1 where she still didn't have a lot to figure out. How do you define success?
We've always defined success the same way. Are we doing our best each and every day? And can we then look back and see progress? Mm-hmm. So we saw progress, like you said, from year 1 to year 2. And now we want to see progress from year 2 to year 3. We've seen progress in our recruiting, right? We've seen progress in the team that we can put together. So now it's about seeing how those pieces meld and mesh on the court. So that's for us. So progress will be like, you can get into wins and losses and this, that, and the other. But, for us, are we better than we were the year before? And so we won't know that until the end of the year. Right. But what we will see is, what I can say is, the progress that we've seen in the gym this summer has blown us away. And so we've got to take that into the fall, and we've got to get through, our exhibition games and get through non-conference. But we definitely want to get to conference play and be a team that is competitive night in and night out. And with the highly competitive Big Ten, and here's the other thing, it's really hard. And I talked to other coaches, men on the men's side, football. It's so hard now to predict where you're going to be because of the transfer portal. Right. Because you don't know what the other teams look like, because the teams don't look the same from last year to this year because of the portal. And so now you go, like, I don't know how Maryland's going to be. They got 6 kids out of the portal. Like, I don't know who's going to play. Are they going to play the same style? Are they going to do something different? So it's really hard for us to be, in my opinion, to be as predictive this year or going into the season as you could in years past. But I will say I'm so optimistic because I really like our team. I really like the pieces. This is the first year we've really had a true point guard. Mm-hmm. And when you get a point guard that can run your team, things look a lot different in the positive sense. So I'm excited about where we can go, how good we can be, and we're going to lace them up every night and give our best effort and see how it all shakes out.
It's going to be fascinating. Like you said, ultimately results are out of our hands, but process is not, and the process there is clearly working. So Coquese Washington, appreciate your time. Always, to our listeners, thank you. Appreciate your time as well. We will be back tomorrow talking, guess what? Women's basketball, as always, 6 days a week. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Tuesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.